Hey, good morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. This is video 6 of our Colt HBAR A2 clone build. This is my original back here that I bought very late 1989. I actually picked it up in 1990, about mid-January, late January. And the clone we're building, I'm using H&R upper and lower receivers. But today's video is the Fulton Armory A2 buttstock with the metal trapdoor. And Fulton Armory is one of the few places left to either find a complete buttstock with the metal door, or you can buy the just the butt plate, or you can buy the metal door separately if you'd like. You got to be kind of careful how you mix and match your butt plates and your doors. They are not all interchangeable depending on what manufacturer you're using. But anyway, and then after we get this A2 buttstock installed onto the H&R receiver, we'll do a comparison. I have two original Colts with the metal trap doors, and then back here is the Wyndham weaponry with a plastic trap door. So we'll do a comparison of Fulton Armory metal door, my two Colt metal doors, and the Wyndham weaponry plastic. So anyway, let's get this thing put together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this butt plate fully off. You can see on the edge here that wasn't finished as nicely as I would like to have it. And on the butt plate here, they left kind of a nugget. So we're going to get all that cleaned up. I'm just going to kind of break the edge a little bit and get this stuff cleaned up. So that'll be our first thing. Okay, so to tighten and loosen screws on firearms, if you're new to the firearms, it's a good idea to use what's called a hollow ground blade. And instead of this being like a regular hardware store type screwdriver where it just comes in at an angle and just the very tip bites, this is what's called hollow ground, and you'll get a much straighter area and you'll get more engagement and less likely to damage your screw. Okay, I thought we'd do a quick clip on the parts here. The door itself is aluminum. You can see the spring and clip mechanism is roll pinned in there. This is steel, and the swivel hinge here is Parkerized. Looks like it's got a decent pin in there. Sling swivel is Parkerized, and some of you guys that know more about different types of butt plates can figure out what maybe Fulton Armory used. And there's the screw for the bottom of the butt plate. And here's the internals. I tried cleaning that up. It's some type of release agent. Doesn't want to come off of there. I used Windex. Maybe I'll try something else, but it's not used. It's all brand new. Okay, so I got some of the flashing knocked off, and looks a lot better than it did. The nugget up here, I couldn't quite get rid of all of it. I got it smoothed out so it doesn't stick up anymore, but it's kind of hard to get rid of. This isn't like a really super hard plastic. It still has a little bit of softness to it, so I drug a blade over it. I tried to sand it a little bit. I filed it. I did everything I could, but still there, better than it was. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the buffer tube on, and there is a torque spec for it. I kind of don't worry too much about that. If I get it anywhere close, like 20, 25, I'm good enough with that. Okay, so the Marine Corps manual calls for a little bit of oil when you screw these together. I'm going to use a little bit of grease. That's one of my favorites. Lithium. You'll see some videos where people tell you to use a little bit of Loctite on this. My personal opinion is don't do that. Okay, so we're going to go get this thing snugged up. And you can see that fitment's pretty good. You can see where the edge of the buffer tube lands on the retainer. Okay, so we got it on there. Sorry about the shaky camera work. You can see where the buffer tube sits just slightly below the edge of the receiver there. So that's like perfect. We already talked about the retainer, buffer retainer engagement. So this is a good fit on the buffer tube. Happy with that, Fulton Armory. Okay, so I had this mocked up last night, and I did find a little bit of a fitment issue between the aluminum spacer that Fulton Armory gave me. When you put the spacer on here and you slide your buttstock, after tightening this up against the butt plate, the butt plate didn't quite contact this spacer. So when I shook the rifle, you could hear this rattling inside. So to fix that issue, I needed to put a spacer on the spacer. So this is aluminum, and you can tell that it's not round anymore. But this is for like drain plugs, oil drain plugs, or coolant or whatever. It sits behind your bolt. I do have copper washers, but I just decided to go with aluminum because everything else is aluminum, so I wouldn't get any dissimilar metals. So anyway, I took a ball peen hammer and just kind of flattened this thing out until it gave me the correct amount of space in here. So that's what's going to go here and get this entire buffer tube the correct length so that when I tighten it up, it's not going to rattle. And it's a nice snug fit. And it took me a few tries with the hammer to get this flattened out to just the right size. But anyway, let's get our buttstock on there, and we'll check the rest of the fitment, and then we'll start comparing this buttstock and the trap door to my other older rifles. All right, so I'm going to screw this together off camera. I got to get a little bit of Loctite anyway. Okay, it's on there. I think good fit. I mean, really fits nice. No spacer rattle. If your spacer's not snug up against the plate and the buttstock, you'll get a rattle. So it's all good. Okay, so in the last video, I had the Bastion trigger guard installed, which looks really nice. And it's a very well machined trigger guard. But I am going with the GI version because Ordinary Man shamed me. He said that putting this on the clone rifle was incorrect. And I thought about what he said, and he's right. Okay, so when you tap your roll pin in, you want to make sure that you support that ear. If you don't, there's a good chance you might break it off. If you do happen to break one of these off, Daniel Defense sells a pistol grip that has a one-piece trigger guard. So you won't have to throw your lower receiver away. There's a workaround for it. Daniel Defense. Okay, we are now clone correct. Okay, so on the side shot here of the Fulton Armory, you should be able to pick that up on camera if I get it at the right angle. And that's not just a line, you can actually feel that. So it's not perfectly flat. So there's a little bit of a molding thing going on right there. Whereas on my Colt, you don't feel that. It's just all nice and smooth and flush. So there's one difference cosmetically. The Colt does have a parting line up here, and so does the Fulton Armory. So that's about the same. The fitment on the receiver is really good between the Harrington and Richardson and the Fulton. And if you look at the Colt, a little bit, just a slight bit of overhang on the buttstock, but it's a good fit also. Okay, so on the butt pad on my old Colt, you can see the fitment is much better from top to bottom. And the Fulton Armory's, it's not bad, but there's a little bit of overhang, especially on the bottom. The overhang on the side, the Colts, they have that too, but it's not quite as pronounced. It's a little bit better. Not a whole lot. I mean, there's still some overhang there where things don't quite line up. Okay, well, let's take a look at the doors. We'll get some close-up on the doors. Okay, so Colt on the left, Fulton Armory on the right. If you start off at the bottom, you can see that the butt plate radiuses, the Colt looks a little larger, and the Fulton radius at the bottom looks a little tighter. You can see the screw differences. Once again, Colt on the left, Fulton Armory on the right. The door thickness, the Fulton Armory seems a little bit narrower, where the Colt is a little bit thicker. The latching mechanism is designed slightly different. When I get a side shot, I'll show you that. If you look at the checkering on the checkering's a little different. Now, I think my Colt started out more white than yellow, but the rifle's kind of getting long in the tooth. You can see that Colt drilled the hole off center a little bit, or they drilled the slot off center, or something's not quite right up there. The hole is quite a bit bigger on the Fulton Armory. All right, let's get some side views. Okay, so the trap door on the Colt seems to be a little better fitment, but there's still, none of these are ever flush. I've never seen one plastic, metal, old, new, where this area is nice and flush. It just never happens. But there's the Fulton Armory. Not bad. It's a little bit less flush for a longer distance, where the Colt kind of gets a little bit flush towards the bottom. Like I said, I've never seen one of these that's perfectly flush. Okay, spring tension on these things. The Colts are brutal. You're going to tear up your fingernails or whatever. Most people will, once they try a couple times with their fingers, they'll stick some type of tool in there. And this Fulton Armory spring tension is very stiff also. Okay, so here's the Colt we've been looking at all day. And I thought we'd just get some different angles so you could see how the trapdoor mates up and how the buttstock kind of overhangs the butt plate a little bit. And this is another Colt, same thing, metal door. And this one actually, the the buttstock and the plate fit pretty good, a little bit better than the Sporter. And like I said, that's a metal trap door also. This is the Fulton Armory. And this is Wyndham Weaponry. And too bad they closed their doors. This is a plastic. So let me open up the plastic on the Wyndham, the metal on the Fulton, and we'll open up one of the doors on the Colt so you can see the differences. Okay, Colt metal door, Fulton Armory metal door, and Wyndham Weaponry plastic door. And I believe that's plastic also. I think the whole thing's plastic. Colt metal door, Fulton Armory metal door, Wyndham Weaponry plastic door. And the Wyndham actually fits the flushest. Even though I'm not a big fan of the plastic, it seems to have the best fitment. Okay, so final thoughts. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the Fulton Armory. Its overall fit and finish is not bad at all. That internal spacer issue that came up a little bit short, that's common. A lot of rifles have that. If you pick up a lot of ARs and shake them and put your ear back there by the stock, you'll hear that spacer rattling around because it didn't get tightened up properly. My only kind of thing that I could see where it really needs a lot of improvement maybe is that the door fitment, and it's the outer door thickness that I think if this was a little bit thicker where it mates up with the butt plate, that would allow it to sit a little bit more flush. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the Fulton Armory. I think it's pretty good quality. All right, Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.